Please, sir, just 5 minutes of your time. My mama is dying. The desperate scream pierced through the marble lobby of Okonkwo Luxury Hotels in Victoria Island, Lagos. 12-year-old Zainab stood barefoot, her faded yellow dress torn at the hem, clutching a crumpled hospital bill in her trembling hands. Security guards rushed toward her, but she dodged them with the agility of a child who had learned to survive Lagos streets. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Tales by AJ. Thank you so much for your unwavering support and love. Before we dive into today's heart-wrenching story, please drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your engagement means the world to us. The billionaire businessman, Mr. Obiora Okonkwo, froze mid-step as the little girl's words echoed through his five-star hotel. His Italian leather shoes squeaked against the polished floor as he turned to face her. Everything about him screamed wealth, from his custom-tailored navy suit to the diamond Rolex catching the chandelier light. But it was his eyes that stopped Zainab's racing heart. They weren't cold, they were curious. "Security, wait," Obiora commanded, his deep voice carrying authority that made grown men tremble. The guard stepped back immediately. He studied the girl before him, skin dusty from the streets, eyes swollen from crying, but something in her gaze burned with fierce determination. "What did you say about your mother?" Zainab's knees nearly buckled with relief. Someone was finally listening. "Sir, my mama has kidney failure. She needs dialysis 3 times a week, but we have no money. The hospital said if we don't pay 800,000 naira by Friday, they will stop her treatment. Please, sir, I'm not begging for free money. I want to work. I can clean, I can wash, I can do anything. Just please save my mama." The lobby fell silent. Hotel guests pretended not to stare, but phones were subtly raised, recording the scene. Obiora's assistant, a sharp-faced woman named Ngozi, whispered urgently in his ear, "Sir, we have the board meeting in 10 minutes. This is not appropriate for—" "I said wait." Obiora's voice cut through the air like a knife. He crouched down to Zainab's eye level, his expensive cologne mixing with the scent of her unwashed clothes. "Where is your father? Why isn't he taking care of your mother?" The question hit Zainab like a physical blow. Her small body began to shake, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the Lagos dust on her face. "My papa," her voice cracked. "My papa has money, sir, plenty money. But he left us 6 months ago. He married a new woman, Miss Gloria, and she doesn't want him helping us. She says Mama is not his problem anymore. She says I am a burden. He abandoned you while your mother is sick." Obiora's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching near his temple. "Papa owns 3 car dealerships in Lekki," Zainab continued, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "He drives a Range Rover. His new wife wears gold chains and goes to Dubai for shopping. But when I went to his office last week, begging him to pay for Mama's medicine, he gave his security men money to throw me out. He said—" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He said I should tell my mother to go and die. That he has moved on with his life." A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. Several women covered their mouths in shock. One elderly guest shook her head, muttering prayers in Yoruba. Obiora stood up slowly, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Zainab feared he would walk away like everyone else. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Dr. Emeka, Obiora here. I'm sending a patient to your private facility within the hour. Kidney failure, needs immediate care. Money is not an issue. Yes, everything. Dialysis, medication, round-the-clock nursing. Handle it personally." Zainab's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing so hard her whole body convulsed. "Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir. Thank you." But Obiora wasn't finished. He looked at Ngozi. "Get me everything on a man who owns car dealerships in Lekki. Recent marriage, wife named Gloria. I want his full name, business addresses and financial records by this evening." "Sir," Ngozi's eyes widened. "You heard me?" Obiora's voice carried a dangerous edge that his employees knew well. "And cancel my afternoon. I'm going to visit this child's mother myself." He turned back to Zainab, extending his hand to help her up. "What's your name, little one?" "Zainab, sir. Zainab Momoch." "Well, Zainab, your mother is going to get the best medical care in Lagos. But I need you to be honest with me about everything. Your father's full name, what happened, all of it. Can you do that?" Zainab nodded vigorously, clutching the hospital bill to her chest like a lifeline. "His name is Ibrahim Momo, sir. He owns Momo Premium Motors. Him and Mama were married for 15 years before he met Gloria at a club in Ikoyi. Gloria is only 23 years old, sir, younger than my oldest sister who Papa sent away to the village when he married Gloria." Obiora's expression darkened with each word. Around them, hotel guests whispered among themselves, some filming the interaction, others calling friends to share the unfolding drama. The story was already spreading through Lagos like wildfire. The heartless father who abandoned his sick wife and begging daughter for a younger woman. "Take me to your mother," Obiora said firmly. "My driver will bring my car around. Ngozi arranged for a private ambulance to meet us at—" He looked at Zainab questioningly. "Island Maternity Hospital, sir. She's in the charity ward." "Not anymore, she isn't." Obiora placed a gentle hand on Zainab's shoulder as they walked toward the exit. "Tell me something, Zainab. When you came here today, why did you choose my hotel? Lagos has many rich men." Zainab looked up at him with eyes far too old for her young face. "My mama used to clean houses before she got sick, sir. She worked for a woman who knows you. The woman said you are tough in business, but you have a good heart because you grew up poor like us. She said if anyone would listen to a nobody like me, it would be you. So I saved bus fare for 3 weeks to come here. Today was my last chance before Friday." Something flickered across Obiora's face. Pain, recognition, or perhaps memory. "Your mother's friend was right. I did grow up poor. And I remember what it feels like when powerful people look through you like you're invisible." As they stepped into the blazing Lagos afternoon, Obiora made another call. "Chief, I need a favor. Yes, the kind that makes a man realize his mistakes. There's a heartless dog named Ibrahim Momo who abandoned his dying wife and daughter for a side chick. I want to know everything about his businesses. Everything." The smile that crossed his face wasn't kind. It was predatory. Zainab, sitting in the back of his Mercedes, didn't understand the conversation, but she felt something shift in the air. This wasn't just about saving her mother anymore. This was about justice. The car pulled away from Okonkwo luxury hotels, leaving behind a lobby full of shocked witnesses already spreading the story across social media. By evening, Zainab's story was trending across Nigeria, and Ibrahim Momo's phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from angry relatives, disappointed business partners, and journalists demanding his side of the story. But Ibrahim was at a restaurant in Ikoyi, feeding oysters to Gloria, completely unaware that his carefully constructed new life was about to come crashing down around him. What would you do if you were in Obiora's shoes? Would you help Zainab or walk away like so many others? Drop a like if this story touched your heart and comment below where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens when Obiora comes face to face with the mother Ibrahim left to die. The charity ward of Island Maternity Hospital smelled of disinfectant, trying desperately to mask the odor of sickness and despair. Obiora had visited many places in his 52 years: presidential suites in Dubai, executive boardrooms in London, luxury villas in Cape Town. But nothing prepared him for the sight that greeted him when Zainab pushed open the rusted door to bed number 47. Mrs. Hawa Momo lay on a thin mattress, her once beautiful face now gaunt and hollow. At 39 years old, she looked 60. Her skin had taken on the greyish-yellow tint of kidney failure, and her breathing came in shallow, painful gasps. An ancient dialysis machine beeped irregularly beside her bed, and Obiora noticed immediately that the IV bag hanging above her was nearly empty, and no nurse was coming to replace it. "Mama!" Zainab rushed to her mother's side, careful not to jostle the fragile woman. "Mama, wake up! I found help! This is Mr. Obiora Okonkwo. He's going to save you." Hawa's eyes fluttered open slowly. When she saw the expensive suit, the gleaming watch, the aura of wealth radiating from the stranger in her miserable corner of the world, tears immediately began streaming down her sunken cheeks. "Sir, please don't believe whatever my daughter told you. She's a good girl, but she's desperate. I don't want her begging on streets for me. Please, just go. Let us die with our dignity." The words hit Obiora like a sledgehammer to his chest. He had heard many things in his life, but a mother begging to die with dignity rather than see her child reduced to begging, that was something else entirely. "Mrs. Momo," he said gently, pulling up a plastic chair that squeaked against the stained floor. "I'm not here because your daughter begged. I'm here because your daughter showed more courage, more love, and more dignity in 5 minutes than most adults show in a lifetime. And I'm here because the man who should be sitting in this chair, your husband, is apparently too busy spending money on a child bride to remember his wedding vows." Hawa's face crumpled. "You know about Ibrahim and Gloria?" "I know enough," Obiora replied, his voice hardening, "and I'm about to know everything." Before Hawa could respond, 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, followed by Dr. Emeka himself, a short, efficient man in his 60s who commanded respect in Lagos medical circles. "Mr. Okonkwo, we're ready for transport. Mrs. Momo, I'm Dr. Emeka. We're taking you to my private facility where you'll receive immediate care. Your dialysis will begin tonight, and we'll start you on a full treatment program." "But sir, I cannot afford—" Hawa tried to sit up, panic flooding her weak voice. "Everything is covered," Dr. Emeka said firmly, already checking her vitals with expert hands. "Mr. Okonkwo has made arrangements. Your only job is to focus on getting better. Now, let's move you carefully." As the paramedics transferred Hawa to the stretcher, Obiora noticed something that made his blood boil. Beside her bed was a small cardboard box containing all her worldly possessions: a faded family photo, a Bible with worn edges, a flip phone with a cracked screen, and a stack of letters bound with a rubber band. He picked up the photo. It showed a younger Hawa, radiant and healthy, standing beside a handsome man in traditional wedding attire. Between them stood 3 children, 2 older girls and baby Zainab. Everyone was smiling, the perfect family portrait. "That was taken 13 years ago," Hawa whispered from the stretcher, "before Ibrahim's businesses became successful, before he started staying out late, before Gloria." "What happened to your other daughters?" Obiora asked, carefully placing the photo back. Zainab answered, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "When Papa married Gloria, she said she didn't want his old family baggage around. She made him send my sisters to the village to live with our grandmother. Rashidat is 21 now. She was supposed to go to university, but Papa cut off all support. Blessing is 17. She was in secondary school, but Papa stopped paying her fees. Gloria said Papa should invest in their future children, not waste money on daughters from a useless woman." "She called your mother useless?" Obiora's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "Many times, sir," Zainab continued, her small hands balling into fists. "Gloria came to our house once, 6 months ago, before Papa finally moved out completely. She stood in our living room, the house Papa bought for Mama when they got married, and she called Mama a dried-up, barren old witch who couldn't satisfy her husband. She said Mama should be grateful Papa kept her alive this long, that she should pack her things and go back to her village and die quietly so Papa could move on with his life." A nurse passing by stopped in her tracks, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. "Doctor," Emeka shook his head in disgust as he secured the IV line for transport. And what did Ibrahim do when his wife said these things? Obiora already knew the answer, but he needed to hear it. Papa laughed, sir. Zainab's voice broke. He laughed and told Mama that Gloria was right. He said he married Mama when he was young and stupid, but now he's successful and deserves a proper wife, a beautiful young wife who makes other men jealous. He said looking at Mama made him feel old and reminded him of his poor days. He said, her voice dropped to a horrified whisper, he said he wishes Mama would just die already so he wouldn't have to feel guilty about being happy. The charity ward fell completely silent. Even the other patients in nearby beds had stopped their conversations, listening in horror to the story unfolding. Hawa was sobbing quietly on the stretcher, covering her face with her skeletal hands. Please, sir, don't make trouble for Ibrahim. He's Zainab's father. She still needs... He stopped being her father the day he abandoned you. Obiora interrupted, his voice like steel. A man who tells his sick wife he wishes she would die is not a father. He's a monster wearing a man's face. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Ngozi, what do you have for me? His assistant's voice came through crisp and efficient. Sir, Ibrahim Momo, 42 years old, owns Momo Premium Motors, 3 locations in Lekki. Estimated net worth 800 million naira. Married Hawa Bello 15 years ago, traditional and church wedding. 3 daughters. He filed for divorce 8 months ago, but the papers were never finalized because Hawa was too sick to appear in court. He married Gloria Bassi in a private ceremony 4 months ago, which is legally invalid since he's still married to Hawa. Gloria is 23, former club dancer in Ikoyi. She has him wrapped around her finger. Multiple sources confirm she controls all his spending and has isolated him from his family and old friends. Business vulnerabilities? Obiora asked, watching as the paramedics wheeled Hawa toward the ambulance. Several, sir. His dealerships operate on credit lines from 3 major banks. His biggest supplier is a Okonkwo import group, which, if I'm not mistaken, you have significant influence over through your partnership with Chief Mbonu. Also, 2 of his dealership locations are on properties owned by subsidiaries of your real estate holdings. He's been late on rent twice this year. A cold smile spread across Obiora's face. Interesting, very interesting. Sir, what are you planning? Ngozi's voice carried a hint of concern. She'd seen that smile before, usually right before someone's business empire collapsed. I'm planning to teach a dog that when you abandon your pack, you lose your right to run with wolves. Obiora ended the call and turned to Zainab, who was clutching her mother's hand as they moved toward the exit. Zainab, I need you to be very brave for a few more days. Your mother is going to be well cared for, but I need you to stay strong while she recovers. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Zainab nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Sir, I meant what I said. I want to work for you. I want to earn the money for Mama's treatment. I don't want charity. Obiora crouched down again, looking into those fierce young eyes. You know what, Zainab? I'm going to give you a job, but not the kind you're thinking. I want you to go to your father's showroom tomorrow with my lawyer. I want you to stand in front of his customers and his fancy cars and tell them exactly what kind of man Ibrahim Momo really is. Can you do that? Zainab's eyes widened. You want me to shame him? I want you to tell the truth, Obiora corrected. The truth has a way of bringing mighty men to their knees, and your father needs to be on his knees, begging for forgiveness. Dr. Emeka cleared his throat. Mr. Okonkwo, we should go. Mrs. Momo needs immediate attention. As they loaded Hawa into the ambulance, Obiora noticed a man in the hospital corridor, thin, nervous, wearing a doctor's coat. The man's eyes darted away quickly when Obiora looked at him, but not before Obiora caught the guilty expression on his face. Who is that? Obiora asked a passing nurse. The nurse glanced at the man and lowered her voice. That's Dr. Yusuf. He's been treating Mrs. Momo. But between you and me, sir, he hasn't been treating her very well. Someone has been paying him to delay her dialysis, to give her minimal care. We all know it, but we can't prove it. Fire ignited in Obiora's chest. Someone paid him to let her die slowly. The nurse nodded miserably. We think it's the husband. We think he wants her to die so he can marry his new wife properly, without the scandal of abandoning a sick woman. But what can we do? We're just nurses. We follow doctor's orders. Obiora's phone was in his hand before the nurse finished speaking. Chief Medical Director of Island Maternity, this is Obiora Okonkwo. I'm standing in your charity ward, and I've just learned that one of your doctors is being paid to commit medical malpractice, possibly attempted murder through negligence. I suggest you investigate Dr. Yusuf immediately, or I'll have every media house in Lagos here by morning. Yes, I'll hold. Dr. Yusuf's face went sheet white. He turned to run, but two security guards, alerted by the nurses who'd had enough of his corruption, blocked his path. The ambulance pulled away with Hawa inside, leaving Obiora standing in the hospital parking lot as the sun began to set over Lagos. His phone rang. It was Chief Mbonu, his business partner, and one of the most powerful men in Nigerian import business. Obiora, I heard you're asking about Ibrahim Momo. What's your interest in that small-time car dealer? He abandoned his dying wife and children for a prostitute half his age, Obiora said flatly, and I'm about to remind him that in this life, every action has consequences. Chief Mbonu was quiet for a moment, then chuckled darkly. Ah, so the young lion remembers his teeth. What do you need from me? Cut his supply line, effective immediately, and spread the word through the Lekki business community. Anyone who deals with Ibrahim Momo answers to me. Consider it done, but Obiora, be careful, cornered dogs bite. Then I'll make sure he has no teeth left when I'm finished with him. As Obiora climbed into his Mercedes, he noticed Zainab watching him through the ambulance window as it drove away. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling, a fierce, hopeful smile that reminded him of himself 40 years ago, when he was a poor boy in Ahigunle who swore he would never let anyone make him feel powerless again. Ibrahim Momo had made a fatal mistake. He'd hurt the wrong child. And now he was about to learn that some debts can't be paid with money. They must be paid with everything. The next morning, Momo Premium Motors in Lekki Phase 1 gleamed under the Lagos sun like a temple to excess. Luxury cars lined the showroom floor, Range Rovers, Mercedes G-Wagons, Lexus SUVs, each one worth more than most Nigerians earned in 5 years. Gospel music played softly through expensive speakers, and the air conditioning kept the temperature perfectly cool, while outside, the city sweltered. Ibrahim Momo stood in his glass-walled office on the second floor, surveying his kingdom with satisfaction. At 42, he'd convinced himself he was still young, still vital, still deserving of the beautiful young wife who currently sat on his leather couch, scrolling through her phone and planning their upcoming trip to Mauritius. Gloria looked up, her makeup flawless, her Brazilian weave cascading down her back. "Baby, we should leave by noon. I want to get my nails done before dinner. You promised we'd go to that new Japanese restaurant in Victoria Island." "Anything for you, my queen," Ibrahim smiled, straightening his designer tie. Below, his salespeople bustled around potential customers, and his 3 locations were all reporting strong morning sales. Life was perfect. Halva was forgotten, a painful chapter he'd closed. His older daughters were out of sight in the village, and little Zainab, well, children were resilient. She'd understand someday that he deserved happiness too. His phone buzzed. Text messages were flooding in from business associates, but he ignored them. Probably congratulations on his recent sales numbers. Then the front doors of his showroom burst open. Zainab walked in, but she wasn't alone. Beside her strode Obiora Okonkwo, wearing a casual but clearly expensive traditional agbada that announced wealth and power. Behind them came a well-dressed woman carrying a briefcase, Obiora's lawyer, Barrister Funmi, and a camera crew with professional equipment. Bringing up the rear were at least 20 women, ranging from their 50s to 70s, many wearing traditional attire and all carrying handmade signs. The signs read, "Real men don't abandon sick wives. Ibrahim Momo, rich in money. Poor in character. Where is Hawa Momo? And shame on you, deadbeat father." The showroom fell silent. Customers stopped mid-conversation. Salespeople froze. And Ibrahim, watching from his office window, felt his stomach drop to his expensive Italian shoes. "Good morning." Obiora's voice boomed through the showroom, commanding and clear. "My name is Obiora Okonkwo, and I'm here on behalf of this young lady, Zainab Momo. Does anyone here know Ibrahim Momo, the owner of this fine establishment?" A salesman nervously raised his hand. "Sir, Mr. Momo is right there." Obiora pointed to the glass office where Ibrahim stood frozen like a deer in headlights. "Mr. Momo, please come down. Your daughter would like to speak with you. It's been a while since you've seen each other, hasn't it? 6 months, I believe." 6 months since you told her to let her mother die? The customers gasped. Phones came out immediately, recording everything. This was Lagos. Drama like this would be on every social media platform within minutes. Ibrahim's face flushed red. Gloria jumped up from the couch, her eyes wide with fury. "Ibrahim, who are these people? Get them out! Call security!" But Ibrahim couldn't move. He watched, paralyzed, as Zainab walked to the center of his showroom, his pride and joy, his symbol of success, and began to speak. Her voice was small but carried through the silent space like a bell. "My name is Zainab Momo. I am 12 years old. The man in that office is my father. 6 months ago, he left my mother to die of kidney failure because he wanted to marry a young woman who didn't want his old family around. Yesterday, I came to his hotel, to Mr. Okonkwo's hotel, begging for work to save my mama's life. My father owns 3 dealerships like this one. He drives cars that cost millions of naira. But he told his security to throw me out when I asked him to help Mama. He told me to tell my mother to go and die." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice never wavered. "My mama is not dead. Mr. Okonkwo saved her life yesterday. She's getting proper treatment now. But I'm here to ask my father one question. Why? Why is your new wife's shopping trips more important than your dying wife's life? Why are these cars more important than your own children?" The silence was deafening. Several customers were crying. One older woman in traditional Igbo attire stepped forward and spat on the pristine showroom floor. "Tufi Aqua," she cursed in Igbo. "What kind of man are you? I was about to buy a car from this place, but I will not give 1 naira to a man who abandons his sick wife. You are cursed, do you hear me? Cursed." She stormed out and 3 other customers followed immediately. The salespeople stood helplessly, unsure what to do. Finally, Ibrahim found his voice. He came rushing down the stairs, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. "Zainab, what are you doing? How dare you come to my business and embarrass me like this? Who put you up to this? Who—" He stopped dead when he saw Obiora Okonkwo standing with his arms crossed, a cold smile on his face. "Mr. Momo," Obiora said pleasantly, "I'm Obiora Okonkwo. Your daughter didn't want to come here. I insisted. You see, I have a problem with men who abuse power, and you, sir, have been abusing yours terribly." "This is my private business," Ibrahim shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "You have no right to come here and—" "Oh, but I do," Obiora interrupted smoothly. "You see, I own the building you're standing in. Well, my subsidiary does. And I just realized you're 3 months behind on rent. That's grounds for eviction, isn't it, Barrister Funmi?" The lawyer stepped forward, opening her briefcase. "Indeed, Mr. Okonkwo. I have the paperwork right here. Mr. Momo, you have 72 hours to vacate these premises or face legal action." Ibrahim's face went from red to grey. "You can't do this. I have a lease agreement. I have rights." "You had rights," Obiora corrected coldly. You gave them up when you failed to honor your contract, just like you failed to honor your marriage vows, just like you failed to honor your responsibility as a father. Gloria came clicking down the stairs in her high heels, her face contorted with fury. Ibrahim, are you going to let this man disrespect you in your own business? Do something. Call your lawyers. Call your connections. His connections? Obiora laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. Mrs. Bassi, oh, I'm sorry, that's not legally your name, is it? Since your marriage to Mr. Momo is invalid, as he's still married to Hawa. Let me tell you about his connections. Chief Mbonu, his primary vehicle supplier, cut him off this morning. The banks that hold his credit lines received some concerning information about his business practices and are reviewing his accounts. And the Lekki Business Association, which I happen to chair, has voted to suspend his membership pending investigation into moral conduct violations. Ibrahim staggered backward as if physically struck. You're destroying me. Over what? Over a sick woman who's as good as dead anyway. The words hung in the air like poison. Zainab made a sound like a wounded animal. The women with signs began shouting, their voices rising in a cacophony of outrage. The remaining customers hurried toward the exits, wanting no part of the unfolding disaster. But Obiora's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Barrister Funmi, did you record that statement? Every word, sir, the lawyer confirmed, holding up her phone. Good, because you see, Mr. Momoh, in Nigeria, a man is still legally and financially responsible for his wife's care, especially when there's no finalized divorce. Hawa Momo is still your legal wife. You have willfully neglected her medical care despite having substantial means. You have abandoned your minor daughter. And you just admitted, on camera, that you hoped your wife would die. That's criminal negligence at minimum, possibly attempted murder through negligence. I didn't mean... Ibrahim's voice rose in panic. I was angry. I didn't actually want her to tell it to the Lagos State Ministry of Women Affairs, Obiora said flatly. They're very interested in your case. Apparently there's been a growing problem with men abandoning sick wives, and they're looking to make an example of someone. Congratulations, Mr. Momo. You're about to become famous. Gloria grabbed Ibrahim's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. Ibrahim, fix this. I didn't sign up for this drama. My friends are calling me. Everyone is talking about us. Do something. I don't know what to do, Ibrahim shouted at her, his composure completely shattered. He's destroying everything. My business, my reputation, my... Your wife is dying and you're worried about your reputation. One of the older women with signs stepped forward. She had kind eyes, but a voice like thunder. Young man, I am Mama Izini. I've been married 40 years. When my husband had a stroke 10 years ago and couldn't work, couldn't even feed himself, did I leave him for a younger man? No. I sold my jewelry, I cleaned houses. I did whatever it took because that's what marriage means. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, you are a disgrace to manhood. The other women erupted in agreement, their voices creating a wall of condemnation that made Ibrahim physically recoil. Obiora raised his hand, and silence fell again. Mr. Momo, I'm going to give you one chance, one single opportunity to prove you're not completely irredeemable. Here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to pay every single medical bill for Hawa's treatment, past, present, and future. Second, you're going to establish a trust fund for your daughter's education and welfare. Third, you're going to publicly apologize to your family. And fourth, his voice dropped to a lethal whisper, you're going to divorce this woman beside you and beg Hawa for forgiveness, knowing you don't deserve it. Gloria shrieked. You can't make him divorce me. I'm his wife. Tell him, Ibrahim. Tell him he can't control you. But Ibrahim wasn't listening to Gloria. He was staring at the camera crew, at the crowd gathering outside his showroom, at his phone which wouldn't stop buzzing with angry messages. He was watching his carefully constructed new life crumble like sand. And if I don't, he asked hoarsely. If you don't, Obiora said calmly, I will personally ensure that every business you touch turns to ash. Every loan gets called in, every contract gets cancelled, every supplier refuses to work with you. Within 6 months you'll be selling these pretty cars just to eat. And the woman beside you. He glanced at Gloria with contempt. She'll be gone before you hit rock bottom. Looking for the next fool with money to spend on her. Gloria's face went pale because she knew, everyone knew, that Obiora was right. Zainab stood in the middle of the showroom, tears streaming down her face, watching her father face the consequences of his choices. Part of her wanted him to apologize, to become the father she remembered from childhood. But another part, the part that had held her dying mother's hand, that had begged on streets, that had been thrown out by security guards, that part wanted him to suffer. Ibrahim's phone rang. He looked at the screen and went even paler. It's my mother in the village. Answer it, Obiora commanded, on speaker. With trembling hands, Ibrahim pressed the button. An elderly woman's voice filled the showroom, crackling with fury and heartbreak. Ibrahim, what have you done? Your sisters are calling me crying. They saw videos of Zainab begging in the street. They saw Howard dying in a charity ward. Is this what I raised you to be? Is this what your father would have wanted before he died? You bring shame on our family name. You are no son of mine until you fix this disgrace. Do you hear me? No son of mine. The call ended with a harsh click. Ibrahim stood in his luxury showroom, surrounded by expensive cars he could no longer enjoy, with a young wife who was already calculating her exit strategy, facing a daughter he'd tried to forget, and a man he couldn't defeat. And for the first time in 6 months he felt the weight of what he'd done. But was it remorse or just fear of losing everything? The mighty have fallen. But is Ibrahim truly sorry or just sorry he got caught? Drop a like if you're living for this justice and comment, should Obiora give Ibrahim a chance to redeem himself or destroy him completely? Subscribe and hit that bell. Next chapter is where Ibrahim makes his choice, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. What would you do in Ibrahim's position? 3 days later, Halwa lay in a private hospital room at Dr. Emeka's facility, looking more alive than she had in months. The dialysis treatments were working, proper nutrition was being administered, and for the first time in half a year, she wasn't in constant pain. But the pain in her heart, that was a different story. She stared at the television mounted on the wall, watching the news coverage that had exploded across Lagos. Her husband's face was everywhere. Social media, blogs, evening news programs. #Justice for Halwa was trending nationwide. Women's groups had organized protests outside Ibrahim's remaining dealerships. His business was hemorrhaging money by the hour. And through it all, Halwa felt no satisfaction, only deep, endless sadness. Zainab sat beside her mother's bed, doing homework that Obiora's assistant had brought, along with a tutor who would ensure the girl's education didn't suffer during this crisis. The child looked up when she heard her mother sigh. "Mama, are you in pain? Should I call the nurse?" "No, my daughter," Halwa whispered, reaching for Zainab's small hand. "The pain I feel, no nurse can fix." A knock at the door interrupted them. Obiora entered, carrying a briefcase and wearing an expression that Halwa couldn't quite read. Behind him came Barrister Funmi, and behind her, to everyone's shock, came Ibrahim. Zainab jumped up immediately, positioning herself between her father and mother like a fierce little guardian. "What is he doing here? Get out! You have no right to see Mama." "Zainab, wait," Obiora said gently, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Your father asked to see your mother. I told him I would allow it only if she agrees and only with witnesses present. Mrs. Momo, do you want him here?" Halwa looked at Ibrahim, really looked at him, for the first time in 6 months. He'd lost weight. His expensive clothes seemed to hang on him differently. His eyes were bloodshot, with dark circles underneath. The confident, cruel man who'd told her to die had been replaced by something broken and desperate. "Let him speak," Hawa said quietly, her voice stronger than anyone expected. Ibrahim took a hesitant step forward, then another. He looked at the medical equipment keeping his wife alive, at the daughter he'd thrown away, at the lawyer documenting everything. Then he collapsed to his knees beside Hawa's bed. "Hawa!" His voice cracked. "Hawa! I'm so sorry." Zainab made a sound of disgust. "Sorry? That's all you have to say? Sorry?" "Let him finish," Hawa commanded softly, never taking her eyes off Ibrahim's face. "I want to hear everything." Ibrahim's hands trembled as he spoke. "I don't know when I became a monster. Maybe it started slowly, small resentments, small selfishnesses. I built my business from nothing, and every success made me feel entitled to more. More money, more respect, more pleasure. When Gloria paid attention to me in that club, I felt young again, powerful. I convinced myself I deserved it after all my hard work." "While your wife cleaned houses to help pay bills," Obiora interjected coldly, "while she raised your daughters and managed your household and supported your dreams." "I know," Ibrahim whispered miserably. "I know that now. I told myself I'd earned the right to be happy, that I'd outgrown this marriage. Gloria made me feel like a king. She never complained, never asked for responsibility, never reminded me of struggles or failures. She was easy. And Hawa, you were hard. You reminded me of where I came from. You wanted me to help my family, to remember my roots, to stay humble. I didn't want humble. I wanted glory." Tears streamed down his face, but Hawa's expression remained unreadable. "When you got sick," Ibrahim continued, his voice breaking, "I saw it as God punishing me for marrying you when I should have waited, for choosing love over ambition. I twisted everything in my mind until you became the obstacle to my happiness, instead of the partner who built that happiness with me. And Gloria, she encouraged every evil thought. She made it easy to forget you, to forget our daughters, to forget everything except my own pleasure." "So you tried to let me die," Hawa stated flatly. It wasn't a question. Ibrahim's face crumpled. "I paid Dr. Yusuf to delay your treatments, not to kill you directly, but to let nature take its course. I told myself it was mercy, that you were suffering anyway, that it would be easier for everyone if—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Zainab lunged at him, her small fists pounding against his chest. "You tried to murder Mama, you monster! You evil, wicked monster!" Obiora caught the girl, holding her back as she sobbed with rage. Ibrahim didn't even try to defend himself from her blows. He simply knelt there, accepting her fury as his due. "I deserve everything happening to me," Ibrahim said. "My businesses are failing. My mother has disowned me. My sisters won't speak to me. Gloria left me yesterday, took all the jewelry I bought her and moved in with some businessman in Abuja. I'm losing everything and I deserve it all. But Hawa, I need you to know that losing you is the worst punishment of all. Not because of what Mr. Okonkwo is doing to my businesses, but because I finally understand what I threw away." "Understanding comes cheap when you're backed into a corner," Barrister Funmi observed, her pen scratching across her legal pad as she documented everything. "You're right," Ibrahim nodded. "I probably wouldn't be here if Mr. Okonkwo hadn't forced me to face myself. But that doesn't make the regret less real. Hawa, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking to come back. I don't deserve that either. I'm here to tell you that I will pay for everything. Your medical care, the girl's education, whatever you need for the rest of your life. I've signed papers with Barrister Funmi, establishing trusts that can't be touched even if I go completely bankrupt. You and our daughters will never suffer because of my foolishness again." Hawa was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "Do you know what the worst part was, Ibrahim? It wasn't the abandonment. It wasn't even watching you parade Gloria around while I suffered. The worst part was wondering if our entire marriage had been a lie, wondering if you ever truly loved me, or if I was just convenient until something better came along. I did love you, Ibrahim insisted desperately. I still don't, Hauwa cut him off sharply. Don't you dare say you still love me. Love doesn't pay doctors to let wives die. Love doesn't throw daughters into the street. What you felt for me died long before you met Gloria. You just didn't have the courage to admit it until she gave you an excuse. The words hit Ibrahim like physical blows. He bowed his head, unable to meet her eyes. Obiora stepped forward. Mrs. Momo, you have options now. Mr. Momo has agreed to pay for everything as mentioned. You can proceed with the divorce and take everything you're owed. Or, he paused significantly, you can reconcile. Though I strongly advise against the latter. Reconcile? Zainab's voice rose in horror. Mama, no, you can't take him back, not after everything he did. But Hauwa was looking at Ibrahim with an expression that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. It wasn't love. It wasn't even hate. It was something far more terrible, pity mixed with finality. Ibrahim, look at me, she commanded. He raised his head, hope flickering briefly in his eyes. When I was dying in that charity ward, Hauwa said, do you know what I prayed for? I didn't pray for God to heal me. I didn't even pray for him to change your heart. I prayed for him to give me enough time to see our daughter grow up safe and provided for. That was all I wanted, to know my children would be okay after I was gone. You're not going to die, Ibrahim said urgently. The doctors said with proper treatment, I'm not going to die, Hauwa agreed. Mr. Okonkwo made sure of that. But the woman you married, the woman who loved you unconditionally, she's already dead, Ibrahim. You killed her months ago. The woman lying in this bed is someone new, someone who survived your cruelty and came out stronger. And this woman doesn't need you anymore. The hope in Ibrahim's eyes shattered completely. I will accept your money for our daughter's sake, Hauwa continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. I will accept the trusts and the medical care, but I will never accept you back into my life. You don't deserve my forgiveness, and I don't have the energy to hate you. You're simply nothing to me now, a stranger who shares my last name until the divorce is final. Obiora nodded approvingly. A wise decision, Mrs. Momo. Ibrahim opened his mouth, but Hauwa wasn't finished. There's something else you need to know. While you were playing house with Gloria, our daughter Rashidat started a small business in the village selling handmade jewelry. She's been sending every naira to help with my medical bills. Money I couldn't even use because the hospital wouldn't accept partial payments. And Blessing has been tutoring younger children to earn school fees because you cut her off. Our daughters learned to survive without you. They learned that their worth doesn't come from their father's wallet. They learned to be strong. Can I see them? Ibrahim asked desperately. Can I apologize to them too? That's their choice to make, Hauwa replied. Zainab, do you want to see your father again after today? Zainab looked at Ibrahim with eyes that held no childish softness anymore. No, Mama, I don't want to see him. He's not my father. A father protects his children. A father sacrifices for his family. This man only sacrifices his family for himself. The words came out with such cold certainty that Ibrahim physically recoiled as if slapped. A nurse knocked and entered. Mrs. Momo, it's time for your evening dialysis session. I'm afraid visitors need to leave soon. Obiora gestured to Ibrahim. Say what you need to say and go. Ibrahim struggled to his feet, looking at his wife one last time. Hauwa, I know you'll never forgive me, but I want you to know that every day for the rest of my life, I'll carry the weight of what I did. Every success will taste like ash. Every moment of happiness will be poisoned by guilt. I'll live, but I'll never truly be alive again. And that's exactly what I deserve. Yes, Hauwa agreed simply. It is. As Ibrahim turned to leave, Zainab suddenly called out, "Papa!" He spun around, desperate hope flooding his face. "Yes, my daughter?" "I just want you to know something," Zainab said, her voice clear and steady. "When I have children someday, I'm going to tell them about you. I'm going to tell them about the man who had everything but threw it away for nothing. I'm going to teach them that money means nothing if you have no character, and I'm going to make sure they never ever become like you." Ibrahim's face went grey. He nodded slowly, accepting this final judgment, and walked out of the room. His footsteps echoed down the hospital corridor, getting fainter and fainter until they disappeared completely. Barrister Funmi closed her notebook with a satisfied snap. "Well, that was quite definitive. Mrs. Momo, I'll have the divorce papers and trust documents ready for your signature by next week. Everything is ironclad. You and your daughters will be financially secure regardless of what happens to Mr. Momo's businesses." "Thank you," Hawa said, suddenly looking very tired. "Mr. Okonkwo, why did you do all this for us? You don't know us. We're nothing to you." Obiora was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his wallet. He extracted an old, faded photograph and handed it to Hawa. It showed a young boy, maybe 10 years old, standing beside a thin woman in a hospital bed. The resemblance to Obiora was unmistakable. "That's my mother," he said softly. "She had breast cancer when I was Zainab's age. My father left us because he said she was damaged goods and he didn't want to waste money on a dying woman. He remarried quickly, a young woman just like Ibrahim did. My mother died 6 months later because we couldn't afford proper treatment. She died thinking she was a burden, that she'd somehow failed as a wife." Tears welled in Hawa's eyes. "I swore on her grave that if I ever had power, if I ever had money, I would never let another woman die feeling worthless because some fool of a man valued his pleasure over her life." Obiora's voice hardened. "When I saw Zainab in my hotel lobby, I saw myself 40 years ago, and I knew I couldn't walk away." Zainab walked over to Obiora and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for saving my mama. Thank you for being the father mine should have been." Obiora patted her head awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with emotion, but moved nonetheless. "You saved your mother, Zainab. You had the courage to ask for help. That's harder than people think." As they prepared to leave Hawa to her treatment, Obiora's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and smiled grimly. "It's Chief Mbonu, probably has news about Ibrahim's businesses." He answered. "Yes, Chief." His expression shifted as he listened. "I see. And how long before complete collapse?" Yes, that's faster than I expected. No, don't extend any lifelines. Let nature take its course." He paused. "Actually, Chief, I have a better idea. What if we buy the dealerships? At bankruptcy prices, of course. We could restructure them. Keep the employees who had nothing to do with Ibrahim's moral failings. Yes, I think Mrs. Momo's daughters might want to run a successful business someday. Consider it an investment in justice." Hawa's eyes widened. "Mr. Okonkwo, that's too much." "It's business," Obiora interrupted smoothly. "Good business even. Your daughters deserve the opportunity their father tried to steal from them. Besides," his smile turned predatory. "I like the poetry of it. Ibrahim loses everything, and what he loses becomes the foundation of his daughter's success. That's karma with compound interest. Justice is being served with a side of poetic irony. Should Ibrahim's businesses become his daughter's inheritance, or is Obiora being too generous? Hit that like button if you believe in karma, and comment below. Is Hawa too harsh, or is she exactly right? Subscribe and turn on notifications. This chapter is the finale where we see what becomes of everyone 6 months later. Will Ibrahim truly change, or will he fall even further? You won't want to miss this conclusion. 6 months later, Lagos was preparing for Christmas. Victoria Island sparkled with decorations, and the warm December air carried the scent of jollof rice and suya from street vendors. But for those who remembered the viral story of Zainab Momo and her dying mother, the greatest gift had already been delivered, and it had nothing to do with wrapped packages. Hawa stood in the lobby of what was now called Momo Okonkwo Premium Motors, watching her daughter Rashidat, now 22, and having completed a crash course in business management sponsored by Obiora, negotiate with a customer. The young woman handled herself with confidence and grace, closing a deal on a Lexus SUV with the skill of someone born for business. "That's 45 million naira, Mr. Johnson," Rashidat said professionally. "We can have it detailed and delivered to your home in Ikoyi by tomorrow afternoon. Would you prefer bank transfer or certified check?" The customer smiled, clearly impressed. "Your father trained you well." "Actually, sir," Rashidat corrected, politely but firmly, "my father had nothing to do with my training. Mr. Obiora Okonkwo and his team taught me everything I know. My father's only contribution was showing me exactly what kind of business person I never want to become." The customer's smile faded awkwardly, remembering the scandal that had rocked Lagos social circles. "Ah, yes, well, congratulations on your success despite everything." After he left, Rashidat walked over to her mother and hugged her tightly. "Mama, we just had our best month yet. All 3 locations are profitable again. The employees are happy because we actually pay them on time and treat them with respect. And the best part, every naira we earn proves that success doesn't require cruelty." Hawa's eyes filled with tears of pride. "Your father would be so—" She stopped herself. "I'm sorry, I meant your grandfather would be so proud. I need to stop giving Ibrahim credit for anything you girls have accomplished." "It's okay, Mama," 17-year-old Blessing chimed in, walking over from where she'd been organizing paperwork. She'd returned from the village and was now in her final year of secondary school, preparing for university. "We know who our real family is. Mr. Okonkwo, Mama Ezine and the women who protested for us, Dr. Emeka, even the nurses who secretly tried to help you when Dr. Yusuf was sabotaging your care. They're our family. Blood doesn't mean much if the person isn't there when you need them." Zainab burst through the front doors, her school uniform slightly rumpled, her backpack bouncing. At 13 now, she'd grown taller and had regained the healthy glow of a well-fed, loved child. "Mama, guess what? I got the highest score in my class on the mathematics exam. My teacher said if I keep this up, I might qualify for that scholarship to the international secondary school." Hawa pulled her youngest daughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair, still sometimes unable to believe they were all alive, together and thriving. "I'm so proud of you, my warrior." "It's because I have the best teachers," Zainab grinned, "and because I never forget that education is the one thing nobody can take away from you, not even a father who tries to throw you away." The glass doors opened again, and Obiora walked in, followed by his assistant Ngozi and Mama Ezine, who'd become something of a grandmother figure to the Momo sisters. Obiora surveyed the showroom with satisfaction. It looked completely different from 6 months ago. The gospel music had been replaced with contemporary Afro beats. The cold, transactional atmosphere had been transformed into something warm and welcoming. Photos of the Momo sisters hung on the walls alongside customer testimonials and community service awards. "Mrs. Momo," Obiora greeted with a slight bow, "you're looking radiant. The treatments are still going well?" "Perfectly, thanks to you," Hawa smiled. She'd regained weight, her skin glowed with health, and though she still needed dialysis 3 times weekly, she was stable and strong. "Dr. Emeka says if I stay consistent with treatment, I could live a long, full life. They're even discussing the possibility of a kidney transplant next year." "Excellent news," Obiora nodded. "And the business?" Rashidat stepped forward with a tablet, pulling up spreadsheets. "We're exceeding projections by 23%, sir. Customer satisfaction ratings are at 96%. We've hired back all the employees my father laid off when his business started failing, and we've added 5 new positions. We're also starting a community initiative, free car maintenance workshops for single mothers and widows. That wasn't in the business plan, Obiora observed, but his tone was approving. We know, Blessing interjected. But Mama always taught us that success means nothing if you're not lifting others up with you. These workshops will teach women basic car maintenance so mechanics can't cheat them. It's good business and good karma. Obiora chuckled. You girls are going to be more successful than I ever was. You have something I had to learn the hard way. You lead with compassion without sacrificing competence. Mama Azini settled into a chair with a satisfied sigh. Speaking of your father, Zainab, I saw him yesterday. The room went quiet. Nobody had spoken Ibrahim's name in months. He'd become something they'd collectively agreed to forget, like a bad dream. Where did you see him? Halva asked carefully, her voice neutral. At the market in Ahagunle, Mama Ezine replied. He was buying second-hand clothes. I almost didn't recognize him. He's lost so much weight, and his hair has gone completely grey. He works as a sales clerk now at a small phone repair shop, makes maybe 50,000 naira a month. Zainab's expression didn't change. Good. Let him learn what it's like to struggle. Zainab, Hawa started, but her daughter cut her off. No, Mama. I know you want me to forgive him. I know you want me to be the bigger person, but I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. He tried to kill you. He threw us away like garbage. The fact that he's suffering now isn't revenge, it's consequences. And consequences are fair. She's right, Rashidat agreed firmly. Mama, you can forgive him if you want. That's your choice. But don't ask us to pretend what he did was okay just because he's poor now. Being broke doesn't make him less of a monster. It just makes him a broke monster. Obiora watched the exchange with interest. For what it's worth, Mrs. Momo, I agree with your daughters. Forgiveness is personal, not mandatory. Some debts can't be repaid, some wounds can't be healed, and some people don't deserve reconciliation just because they're suffering. Hawa sighed deeply. I don't hate him anymore. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend on my girls and my health. But you're right, forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Ibrahim made his choices, now he lives with them. That's not cruelty. That's justice. Did he say anything to you? Blessing asked Mama Izine. Did he ask about us? He saw me but pretended he didn't, Mama Izine replied. I think shame has eaten him alive from the inside. The man I saw wasn't the arrogant fool from 6 months ago. He was a shell, broken, hollow, aged beyond his years. Gloria destroyed him financially, his new wife destroyed him emotionally, and his own choices destroyed him spiritually. There's nothing left of the Ibrahim Momo who once ruled Lekki. What about Gloria? Zainab asked with the morbid curiosity of youth. What happened to her? Ngozi pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media. Last I checked, she's on husband number 3 since leaving your father. Current one is a politician in Abuja. Married, of course. She posts photos of designer bags and exotic vacations. But word on the street is that the politician's wife has hired people to make Gloria's life very uncomfortable. She can't go anywhere without being recognized and shamed. Turns out being the woman who destroyed a family isn't great for your reputation, even in Lagos. That's its own kind of prison, Hawa observed. Always looking over your shoulder, always waiting for the next scandal, never able to build anything real because you're built on someone else's destruction. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a surprise visitor, a well-dressed woman in her 60s, wearing traditional Igbo attire and carrying herself with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. She walked straight to Hawa and extended her hand. Mrs. Momo, I am Mama Okonkwo, Obiora's mother. Yes, the same mother from the photograph. I didn't die 40 years ago. Hawa's eyes went wide with shock. But Mr. Okonkwo said. Obiora stepped forward, his face slightly embarrassed. I may have exaggerated for dramatic effect. My mother had cancer, and my father did abandon us. But she survived, barely, with help from our church community. She's been living quietly in the East, running a small school for orphans. I support her work, but she doesn't like publicity. I came to Lagos to see the woman and children who reminded my son of our struggles, Mama Okonkwo explained, her Igbo accent thick but her English perfect. And to tell you something important, your suffering was not wasted. Every tear you cried, every prayer you prayed, every moment you endured, it has meaning now. Your daughters are watching you survive with grace. They're learning that a woman's worth isn't determined by a man's opinion. They're learning that dignity matters more than pride, and character matters more than comfort. You're teaching them how to be warriors without becoming cruel. That's a gift more valuable than any business or any amount of money. Tears streamed down Howard's face. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Some days I wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm good enough, if... You're more than enough, Mama Okonkwo interrupted firmly. I know because I was you 40 years ago, and I'm still here, still standing, still strong. You will be too. The two women embraced while everyone else watched with misty eyes. Even Obiora looked away, clearing his throat awkwardly. Zainab's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and froze. Mama, it's a text from Papa's number. The room went silent. Halwa tensed. What does it say? It says, Zainab, I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve to contact you, but I saw online that your business is doing well, and I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. Not because I had anything to do with your success, I know I didn't, but because you're everything I should have been and wasn't. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know. Love, the man who used to be your father. Nobody spoke. The message hung in the air like smoke. Finally, Zainab looked up. Should I respond? That's your decision, Hawa said softly. Not mine, not your sister's, not Mr. Okonkwo's. What does your heart tell you? Zainab stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she started typing. When she finished, she read aloud. Thank you for the message. I'm not ready to have you in my life yet. Maybe someday, maybe never, but I hope you find peace with your choices. I have. She hit send and immediately blocked the number. There, she said with finality. That chapter is closed. Now we focus on our story, not his. Rashidat pulled both her sisters into a hug. Our story is going to be legendary. 3 sisters who lost everything, survived, and built an empire on principles instead of pride. That's the story I want people to tell. That's the story they will tell, Obiora confirmed, because that's the story you're living every single day. As if on cue, a customer walked in, a middle-aged woman in nurse's scrubs, looking nervous and out of place. Rashidat approached her with a warm smile. Good afternoon, Ma. Welcome to Mama Okonkwo Premium Motors. How can we help you today? I don't have much money, the woman admitted, but I saw your advertisement about payment plans for healthcare workers, and I desperately need a reliable car to get to my night shifts. My old car finally died last week, and I can't afford the transport fares anymore. You came to the right place, Rashidat assured her. Let's sit down and find something that fits your budget. We believe everyone deserves reliable transportation, especially people like you who take care of others. As Rashidat led the nurse to a desk, Halva watched with profound satisfaction. This was her legacy, not bitterness, not revenge, not destruction. Her legacy was 3 daughters who'd learned that surviving cruelty didn't require becoming cruel themselves. Obiora stood beside her. You did good, Mrs. Momo, really good. So did you, Halwa replied. You saved us when nobody else would. Why? Really, why? I know about your mother, but there's something else, isn't there? Obiora was quiet for a moment. The truth? When I became successful, I became cruel. Not like Ibrahim, I never abandoned my family, but I forgot what it felt like to be powerless. I fired people without thinking about their families. I destroyed competitors without considering if they deserved it. I became the kind of rich man who looks through poor people like they're invisible. Then I saw Zainab in my hotel, 12 years old, barefoot, begging for her mother's life, and I saw myself. Not who I was as a child, but who I'd become as a man. And I hated it. So we saved you too, Hawa realized. You did, Obiora admitted. You reminded me that power without compassion is just another form of poverty. Thank you for that. Christmas music started playing through the showroom speakers. Classic Nigerian carols mixed with contemporary Afro beats. Customers browsed cars while Rashidat helped the nurse, blessing organized inventory. And Zainab did homework at a desk in the corner. It was beautifully, wonderfully normal. Mama Ezini stood up, clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. Before I forget, I have announcement. The Women's Support Network, the group that protested for Hawa. We've decided to establish an annual award. It will be called the Hawa Momo Resilience Award, given to women who overcome adversity with grace and dignity. The first recipient will be announced at our Christmas gala next week. Hawa, we hope you'll present the award. Hawa covered her mouth, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Mama Okonkwo encouraged. Your story needs to be told, not for pity, but for power. There are thousands of women suffering in silence right now, thinking they're alone, thinking they deserve their suffering. They need to know that survival is possible, that justice exists, that their lives have value even when the men who promise to cherish them say otherwise. Then yes, Hawa said firmly, yes, I'll present the award. And I'll tell my story, all of it, the pain, the betrayal, the survival, and the triumph. Because Mama Okonkwo is right. Our suffering isn't wasted if it lights the way for someone else. As the sun began to set over Lagos, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the Momo family stood together in their reclaimed business, surrounded by people who'd chosen to be family when blood relatives had failed them. They'd lost so much, a husband and father, their health, their security, their innocence. But they'd gained something far more valuable, the unshakable knowledge that they could survive anything. 6 months ago, Zainab had stood in Obiora's hotel lobby, desperate and afraid, begging a stranger to save her dying mother. Now, she sat in her family's thriving business, secure in the knowledge that she'd saved herself. She'd found the courage to ask for help, and that courage had transformed not just her family's life, but also the lives of everyone her story touched. And somewhere in Ayagunle, Ibrahim Momo folded cheap clothes in a tiny shop, living with the consequences of his choices. He would never recover what he'd lost, not the money, not the respect, and certainly not his family. But perhaps in his suffering, he'd finally learned the lesson that eluded him when he had everything, that a man's true wealth isn't measured in cars or bank accounts or young wives. It's measured in the love and respect of the people who know him best. Ibrahim had been rich and was now poor, but he'd always been bankrupt where it mattered most, in his soul. The Momo women had been poor and were now comfortable, but they'd always been wealthy where it truly counted, in their unbreakable bond, their unshakable dignity, and their unwavering commitment to being better than the circumstances that tried to destroy them. That night, as Hawa tucked Zainab into bed in their new, comfortable apartment, paid for by the business profits, the young girl looked up at her mother with serious eyes. "Mama, do you think Papa will ever truly be sorry? Not just sorry he got caught, but actually sorry for what he did." Hawa smoothed her daughter's hair, choosing her words carefully. "I don't know, my love. Some people change when they hit rock bottom, others just dig deeper. But here's what I've learned. His redemption isn't our responsibility. Our responsibility is to live well, love fiercely, and never let anyone else's cruelty make us cruel. We win not by destroying him, but by building something beautiful from the ruins he left behind." Like a phoenix, Zainab said sleepily, rising from the ashes. Exactly like a phoenix, Hawa agreed. Now sleep. Tomorrow is a new day and we have a whole beautiful life to live. As she turned off the light and closed the door, Hawa paused in the hallway. Through one bedroom door, she could hear Rashidat on a video call with a supplier, negotiating terms with confident professionalism. Through another door, Blessing was studying for her final exams, preparing for the university education she'd almost lost. And behind her, Zainab slept peacefully, no longer haunted by nightmares of hospitals and rejection. They'd survived. More than that, they'd triumphed. Not through revenge or bitterness, but through resilience and grace. And that, Hawa thought, as she headed to her own room, was the sweetest victory of all. This is the power of resilience, dignity, and refusing to let cruelty define you. Drop a like if this story touched your heart, and comment below, what was your favorite moment in this journey? Was it when Zainab confronted Ibrahim? When Hawa refused to take him back? Or when the sisters built their empire from his ruins? Subscribe to Tales by AJ for more powerful stories of justice, redemption, and triumph. Share this with every strong woman in your life who needs to be reminded of her worth. And most importantly, remember that your value isn't determined by anyone who abandons you. You are worthy, you are strong, you are enough. Thank you for watching Beautiful Souls. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. We have more incredible stories coming your way. God bless you all.